You're listening to another ambitious EntrepreneurNetwork.com podcast, the voice for entrepreneurs and small business. Now, onto the show.
Welcome to Smart Connect Podcast, the podcast for small to medium-sized enterprises. Join your host, Anne-Marie Cross, as she interviews business experts and industry thought leaders on best practice initiatives, innovation, and insights to help you grow your business. Now, over to your host.
Welcome to Smart Connect Podcast. This is episode 14, featuring business experts and industry thought leaders to help you effectively navigate a constantly changing and disruptive marketplace. And I'm your host, Anne-Marie Cross. Now, according to the 2016 Semantic Internet Security Threat Report, cyber attacks again small business, and they've increased from 18% in 2011 to 43%, which I'm sure you would agree is a significant increase, which means we all need to be on alert. Now, Damien Battersby is the founder and managing director of Proactive IT Solutions, an IT company focused on helping business owners improve their bottom line through best practice technologies. By focusing on the business strategy and taking a proactive approach, Damien offers more to his clients, maximizing their business performance through their IT systems. His clients enjoy less downtime, higher returns on technology investments, and more profits. Now, along with technology, Damien's also passionate about business, particularly what he calls client experience. The theory behind this is that by focusing on delivering a consistent, awesome client experience, you will have more loyal clients. Now, on today's show, Damien's going to speak about why you need to be prepared for the new notifiable data breach scheme that the government is bringing in early next year and how this relates to IT security, why cyber criminals are focusing on small and medium business more and more and what the threats are, as well as simple things that we can do in our business to reduce the chance of being impacted by cyber crime. So welcome to the show, Damien.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.
So I only have to recall, I think it was, so just a month or so ago, when cybercrime hit many companies over in the UK. I think thankfully at that stage, no businesses were impacted here in Australia, but it is getting scary, isn't it?
It sure is. It's certainly out there at the moment. And this year we've seen a big rise in the incidences happening and big newsworthy ones where big companies are being affected, hospitals, manufacturing firms, international companies. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember just, it would have to be, I think last year sometime we were visiting one of our property managers up in Queensland, and their entire, I won't say who it was, but their entire office was down technology-wise because unfortunately one of the admin assistants inadvertently opened an email attachment and it took days, if not weeks, to get back online. So we really do need to be wary. Now, talk about the new notifiable data breach scheme. What is it and why do we need to be aware of this and prepared for it?
Yeah, look, it's something that the government's bringing in February next year, and really what it's saying is the government's putting us all on notice. They're seeing a rapid rise in cybercrime in Australia and they want to try and do something about it. And in particular, cybercrime has a big impact on privacy, and a lot of data breaches involve personal private data being stolen by cyber criminals, and then that can be used as identity fraud or sold on to third parties for a profit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get your identity stolen, it can make your life very difficult, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that there are obviously larger companies such as banking, the government themselves. I think they are, as an organisation, the largest holders of privacy information, so I'm sure they've got themselves on the list. But if we think about our small business, how's that going to impact us? Is this going to be copious, more, obviously technology and things in place that we need to have to secure data that we have on our customers?
The scheme at the moment is going to apply to any business turning over more than $3 million a year. Okay. So that's going to be a majority of businesses out there.
Mm-hmm.
And what it means is if you have a cybercrime happen in your business and it involves private data being stolen, you have to go through a certain process to notify not only the people whose data was involved, but also the government office in charge of managing this, and basically let them know what's happened and also let them know what your strategy is to manage it going forward.
Just give me an idea, if you know, who put this together? Was it a culmination of organisations? Is this a good thing? I mean, or is it going to be just another onus on businesses?
Well, you do have to think about this, and a lot of small businesses don't. They don't think about IT security, and they don't think about the what ifs if something happens to them. They hope they won't get hit. So, yes, it is another layer, another thing you have to think about, but I don't think it's a bad thing. The possibility of you having a cyber breach is fairly high, unfortunately, and you need to put in some things in place to protect yourself, but also be aware that if something does happen, what are you going to do to recover from it and move on as a business? And I think it's just, the government as a whole is seeing, like I said, a really large increase in cybercrime in Australia, and they're having to do something about it because people's privacy is being affected, people's data is being stolen and used.
Yeah.
And if you're dealing with a company, you want to know that they're A, looking after your data, and B, you want to know if something happens to that data. And I think that's been the issue, Anne-Marie, is that people's data has been stolen by cybercrime, and these companies have not done anything about it to warn people.
Yeah.
And so it's a very serious thing, if suddenly you go online to do banking one day and you find that you can't because your identity's been stolen, it's very serious. You want to know how that's happened and why.
Yeah, and I think from the point of view too of our business, we want to make sure that not only are we now, putting measures in place to report it and obviously allow people to know that this has happened, but even before that, have processes, protocols in place to avoid ever being in a situation where we do need to then roll out what we have in place to alert people to the fact that data has been stolen, because businesses have been crippled, haven't they? If they've been attacked, their businesses often cannot access any of their data, so therefore many of us rely on our computer systems to be able to operate.
Absolutely, and unfortunately we see it, almost every week, or you hear in the news where clients, and the big one is obviously the ransomware viruses that have been in the news of late. And you get one of those in your network, they will encrypt all of your company data, and really the only way to restore that is to go to your backup, bring the data back, and while you're doing that, your servers are down, you can't get access to data. And for some companies that have got large volumes of data, that can be a couple of days of recovery. So, imagine shutting your business down for 2 days. That's a massive expense. You've got lost labour, lost productivity, as well as lost income from not being able to do your business.
Yeah, it really is, I think, an initiative that is going to benefit everyone in the long run, because some of these ransomwares, once it opens up, or viruses, it just spreads like wildfire. And before you know it, unfortunately, many businesses are impacted. Why do you think that cyber criminals are now focusing on small to medium-sized businesses more and more? And let's talk about what some of these threats are.
Well, I'll answer your first question, Anne-Marie, and why are they focusing on small, medium business? Well, probably because it's easy. Corporates have got, big IT departments. They can afford to put, a whole, security team in place to help protect their IT and their business. But for a small, medium business, it's often a lot harder to get access to those expert people, and they don't want to spend the money. They think, oh, we'll be fine, we'll manage without it, until they get hit, and then they realise how critical and important it is to think about. So it's like all these things. Small and medium businesses are easy targets for cyber criminals because they haven't put the things in place to protect themselves.
And let's talk about what some of these threats are.
Yeah, so obviously ransomware is the big one, and most ransomware attacks come in now via email. So we've all seen those emails that look legit but are in fact not, and they take you to a site that looks like maybe PayPal or Google login or something, and in fact they're either harvesting your details or making you download some malicious code that, when runs, then starts to encrypt stuff and do all sorts of damage in your system. So ransomware is definitely one of the biggest ones, and that's the one we see probably most commonly. But certainly the phishing attempts, and that's where an email is sent to trick you into going online and typing your personal information in. And banks and stuff will talk about this a lot. They'll never send an email asking you to log in, put all your information in. If you ever get that, go to your banking site through your independent link and enter your information in so that you know you're logging into a proper legitimate site. So they're the two main ones. We don't see so many hacking, but we do have a few clients, unfortunately, who have terminal servers, remote servers, and they have been targeted by cyber criminals, and they've been hacked into, and once they're hacked into, they can use them for all sorts of nasty things. They can encrypt your files. They can use them to launch other attacks onto other companies. They can do lots of nasty things. So that's probably the third one we're seeing quite a lot of as well.
One of the things that happened to one of the people that I follow, she had a huge following, like, I'm talking 500,000 followers on one particular social media profile and many across others. And one of the things that happened was she wasn't careful in how she protected her passwords, and hackers were able to determine what her passwords were and then was able to hack in, and you could see every time you refreshed her Instagram account, they were deleting hundreds of posts that she'd created over the years. Now, for many businesses who are spending a lot of time and energy and money on building an online profile, particularly across some of the social networks, this is valuable. So to have that be destroyed almost within 24, 48 hours, and it turned out to be young kids who were very good at, obviously, technology, and basically, again, held her to ransom. If you pay us X amount of money, we'll restore your accounts, and the FBI was involved in all that kind of thing too. So talk about some of the measures that we need to have in place to avoid anything like this happening.
Well, yeah, you talk about the password thing, Anne-Marie, and that is certainly something that we talk to our clients a lot about, because people don't understand the importance of managing their passwords and really protecting their online accounts. And many of us, will sign up to a new service, we'll put a username and set a password and not really think about that any further. But unfortunately, all these online services, they've got the potential to be hacked and have your details, basically stolen. And if you're using the same password for all your online accounts, you're putting yourself at incredible risk. And there's been some massive breaches in recent history. You've got LinkedIn, they've been hacked. Obviously, Yahoo's been hacked, Dropbox, NetSpace. The list goes on, and most of us would have an account somewhere in there. So password security is certainly the first thing to really be careful with, and that's in some ways it's a very cheap thing to do, but a lot of people don't think about doing it. So I would recommend using a password manager, so something like LastPass that actually saves your passwords for you and then inserts them in when you go to an online portal, and set passwords that are complex, so lots of random characters and at least 12 characters, and it makes it a lot harder to have your accounts hacked.
So with LastPass, for people who haven't heard that, how do they access that?
Well, that's really great. It has got a free version. So you basically go to LastPass, do your search with Google, you'll find them. You can sign up for free. And once you've signed up, you install an add-in to whatever browser you use, so Firefox or Chrome or IE. And then it will actually detect when you log into a site and ask you to have that site saved as a LastPass site. And then next time you go there, it will automatically insert username and password in for you, and it will synchronize across devices. So if you've got multiple computers, or you're running phone or an iPad, that sort of thing, you can have them all synced up. So essentially I just have to remember the password to my LastPass account, and I can let it save everything else for me. And I did a count a little while ago. I have over 100 online accounts that I access fairly regularly. So
yes,
trying to remember 100 different passwords, which is what you should be doing, is impossible.
So LastPass, do a Google for that, and certainly sign up for that. How often then would you say it's important for us to change our password? Is that something that LastPass reminds us of, or is there a set time that you recommend is good?
Look, the best practice is probably every 3 months. LastPass will tell you if you're got too many passwords that are the same or too simple, and yes, it will tell you if you haven't changed one for a while. So it's a really good tool for keeping on top of that sort of stuff. The other thing with passwords is, a lot of accounts now, or online accounts, have ways to recover your password. Really be careful about what you use as your secret questions. If you've got online social accounts and you're talking about your children, your pets and stuff, it doesn't take anybody too long to figure out that maybe you're secret question is your dog's name or your firstborn's name, something like that, you've got to really be careful about those secret questions, because that's another way people can have their accounts hacked really easily.
Yeah, well, the example that I mentioned about that person that I was following online, that is exactly how they got her passwords. They were the same across all her accounts, and it was something that was personal that they were able to piece together through what she shared. You know, some of those things that go around for fun, you know, the 20 questions about you, getting to know you better.
Yeah.
That kind of information is a gold mine for these hackers, isn't it? Because nothing's stopping them from putting it into a file and then just compiling more and more info till all of a sudden you've provided them a lot of private information.
Absolutely. It's almost too easy for them these days. They can go online, find a lot about you. You know, some people even have their date of birth and stuff up on their social media, which I would never do. So they can put your date of birth, and it's just a matter of the software that they use to hack these things. They just use combinations of your favourite pets and all that sort of thing, and before long they can hack in. So you really have to think about this thing. And a lot of people post stuff on social media, and if they've got it public, they don't think about these things, but they can be used against you very easily.
So that's passwords. What would be something else that we need to be mindful of in order to reduce the chance of being impacted by cybercrime?
Well, for me, the next thing is your employees, your team, and that's about education. And again, that's a fairly inexpensive thing to do, and it can have a big impact. So, you want to make sure that everybody's aware of, what to look for in an email. Make sure that they don't click on anything in an email unless they, double check that it's okay. Because like I said, most stuff these days seems to come through emails. And so some simple team education. If you're not able to run it yourself, get your IT support people in, and they can run through some really easy things people can check that can, save really a lot of heartache. And if you're not sure about things in emails, then have someone else look at it or send it to your support people, and they can check it and confirm whether it's legit or not. So I think team education is probably the next one on the list for me.
The other example about our property manager, that was exactly what happened. One of their younger team members looked at an email that was coming in. It looked very innocent. As soon as she clicked it, off it went, and they found themselves in all sorts of strife because of the fact that cybercrime can change constantly. This is something that we really need to keep up to date on, and therefore regularly keep our staff informed. Yes? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, the methods that they're using aren't changing a whole lot, but certainly with, say emails, you see new ones come out. So around tax time, you see the emails that look like they're from the ATO. You see the ones from the utility companies. So certainly being able to recognise those, and almost every month they get better and better looking, and even experts can have trouble ascertaining whether they're legitimate or not. So I think it certainly requires a constant education process, and also people tend to forget. We're also busy in our day-to-day lives. Everyone almost has too many emails coming in, so you get busy and you forget sometimes to check these things. I think constantly reinforcing it is something that's really, really important.
Emails you've spoken about can be very dicey, particularly attachments that, as you say, can be malware or ransomware. What about if some of us do allow our team on their lunch breaks to access some of the social media sites like Facebook and so forth? Sometimes people can pick up all sorts of nasty things by clicking on links that are shared by their friends on Facebook, yes, or other platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's the same sort of thing. Be really, really careful before you click on stuff. With Facebook, I have it, but I don't really use any of their apps or anything extra because, first of all, it's full of junk, but I just don't know where they're from. You can't trust them. And so you might allow your team to use those social media platforms, but you might say, don't use them to install anything or add any apps to your Facebook. It's not safe, but do that on your own computers where that's not going to impact on the business, because you're right, that is a way that cyber criminals can find a way in. And again, your guard's down when you're on Facebook. You're looking at your feed, you're clicking on things that people have shared, and again, you can click on something that's not legitimate very easily and get yourself into a lot of trouble.
And I mean, if it's your own, if they're at home and it's their own computer, well, then obviously you've got that one computer which you need to then implement, some IT protocols. But if you're thinking about a business, you're often networked amongst the team, and it can go back to your server, which, unless of course you think of these things, you just don't realise till all of a sudden something happens, and then it's obviously too late. So what are some other things we need to be aware of?
Well, the other thing is if you've got employees that travel on the road and use laptops and phones and stuff, make sure they're not connecting to open wireless networks unless they've got some good security measures in place. Wireless networks, especially open ones, are a really dangerous thing to do. People can basically create hotspots that look legitimate, and you can connect up to it thinking you're connecting to your cafe's hotspot, but you're actually transacting on somebody else's device, and they're collecting all your passwords and information without you realising. So I tell people if they want to use a free hotspot, they should really use a VPN solution so that when they do connect, all of their traffic is encrypted and it can't be seen by anybody.
How does someone know the difference between like a VPN solution? Is there a code, or how does that work?
Well, the way a VPN works is essentially you dial into another computer somewhere else, and it creates a secure tunnel. So the big problem with open wireless networks is your details can be gathered because they can either be unencrypted, or someone could be if you'd say logging into a banking site, they can put a pretend banking site up that collects your username and password without your realising. So if you put a VPN in place, you're going to be able to bypass all that stuff, and it's a subscription. Some of them are free, but the better ones do cost some money. Not a lot of money, maybe $15 a month. And you simply dial, you run the software when you connect, and it then encrypts everything, and you know that you're going to be safe when you're browsing on that open network. But as a rule, I probably would stay away. Most of us have got pretty good mobile phones or data plans that we can use for use of data when we're out and about.
I remember someone mentioning that when they go to sometimes the local supermarket, or even the large chains, they often offer free Wi-Fi. They say, I never log into that. So is that something we really need to be cautious about too?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, even if you are logging onto a legitimate network like at the supermarket, guaranteed they'll be collecting your personal information anyway, because, why are they offering it for free? It's not just because you're a great customer, it's because they actually want to gather intel on you. So they might want to
shopping habits
see
or
what
what
you're doing on your phone,
and
they can do all sorts of stuff now. And that data they get is really useful for them with marketing and stuff. So as a rule, don't do it, because you just don't know what they're going to be using your device for.
Are there any other things? I mean, I'm probably, lots and lots of things, but what are some other things that you find people really get themselves into strife because they don't have any protocols in place?
Well, the other thing that has been with the latest ransomware ones is patching. So critical updates for, particularly Windows computers, but making sure that your software packages and your operating systems are fully up to date with critical patches, because if you don't, you could be leaving yourself open to a security hole, which could land you in some strife. So, and that's a fairly simple thing to do in a smaller network. Obviously, in a bigger one, you've got to have that managed better and make sure it's done. But yeah, a lot of people out there don't think that doing software updates is important, but it's absolutely critical in patching up these holes, because cyber criminals use these things to gain access again. Once they're publicised, cyber criminals will use them because they know people will be slack in going through and installing those updates.
I also heard too, particularly on certain websites, and we've got plugins on various websites, we need to keep that all up to date too, because any gaps can also allow people to hack in and, again, finding yourself in strife. Is that something that you see too?
Yeah, absolutely. And, the big web platforms like WordPress and Joomla, you've got to keep them up to date. As they release a critical patch, you have to install it, because if you don't, and we've seen it time and time again, people don't do that, and then their site gets hacked. And if you've got a hacked site, essentially you have to restore that from your backup. And if you're reliant on your website being up to generate sales traffic or to communicate with your clients, it's not a really good look if it's down for a couple of days while you get it fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've mentioned this a number of times, and I just want to talk about this because often, and I'm talking about a backup, and often you'll either hear someone have to say, you know what, we haven't been keeping up to date regular backups, and again they find themselves in trouble when they have to rely on that. But I've also heard horror stories where companies were backing up thinking that they were doing the right thing, yet when they had to restore from the backup, all of a sudden they've realised that the backups they've been taking weren't really working properly, and they weren't in all sorts of strife. What things can you speak about around backups to really make sure that what we are backing up is the right thing and it's working?
Yeah, there's nothing worse, is it, than thinking you're doing the right thing, and backup's one of those classics where you don't want to have to test it when you really need it, and unfortunately, a lot of businesses do that. They don't never test it, and that's really the thing you can do is actually test it by recovering a file and doing that regularly, so your backup is working. You can also have your backup monitored by a third party, and we do that for our clients with the products we sell. We actually have our products verify the backups daily, and we can see if there's an issue, and if there is, get it resolved straight away, because you don't want to be in that position where you go to recover, and when these cyber threats happen and you get impacted, usually you have to recover all your data. So you need to know you can recover all your data, and you need to know you can recover your data from a timely point. You don't want to have to go back to last month's backup and lose a month's worth of data.
Yeah, that's right.
Because for some reason it wasn't working.
Or inadvertently we've been backing up and we don't realise that we've had a virus sitting there waiting, dormant or whatever you call them.
Yeah.
And so the backup that we were going to restore, sorry, but you need to go back even further because your system was compromised.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Look, Damien, you have been an absolute wealth of knowledge. We could continue talking, I know, for a whole hour on this and just kind of cover the surface. Share a little bit more about the services that you offer, because I know we've only just touched the surface, and this is really important. And, give people a little bit of an overview of who you are, what you offer, and then, of course, how people can get in contact with you.
Yeah, absolutely, Anne-Marie. So we look after IT for small to medium business, and really we are your one-stop shop for all your IT needs. So we do day-to-day support, we do upgrades to hardware, we do software upgrades, help people move to the cloud, and we're doing a lot of work now with IT security. So focusing on the security side of things, if you're a bit worried about your IT security, we can come in and do a free review. We can have a look what you've got and provide you with an idea of any weaknesses you might have there, anything that you might need to look at improving, and that way at least you can then put a plan to improve your security and make sure you're not a sitting duck. We also do a general IT review, which can look at things like, how's your systems running? Are they running well? What's your overall efficiency? A lot of people are doing manual processing nowadays when they can actually make that a more electronic, automated thing. There's some of the things we do, and look, we help a big range of clients, everything from a two-person business right up to 100 PC business. So, and we're in lots of industries, so we've got lots of experience looking after lots of different types of businesses out there.
Yeah, fantastic. And what's your web address? How can people get in contact with you?
So people can go to our website, which is proactiveitsolutions.com.au, and there's a contact form on that they can use to contact us. We've got lots of information on there. We've got what we call inside articles, which is lots of articles giving some advice on lots of different areas, quite a few on security and the cloud and that sort of thing. So might be an interesting read if you're looking to learn a bit more as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And of course that website again, proactiveitsolutions.com.au. Thanks once again, Damien, for coming on the show.
No worries, Anne-Marie. Absolute pleasure.
Well, that brings us to the end of another show. I know that you have taken so many insights away with you today, and please make sure you put those measures into place and contact Damien to make sure that you do protect yourself from cybercrime. Now, if you want to connect with Australia's foremost collective of business experts and thought leaders, all you need to go is to ssba.net.au. That's ssba.net.au.